Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Digital Dentistry Decoded podcast, where we keep you up to date with all things digital dentistry. We have a returning guest here, Cory Lambertson, the General Manager of Asiga in the Americas. Welcome back, Cory.
Dr. Ahmad, thank you for letting me join again. It's a pleasure seeing you as always.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Look, I'm super excited to chat. I think we talked early in the year. It must have been over 7-8 months ago, and you guys have had a really, really busy year at Asiga. And so I'm just keen to pick your brains and see how everything's going. But before we get into all of that, how have you been, man? How's everything?
Everything's good. You know, we're closing out the year, and it's been, like you said, a crazy busy year for us here at Asiga. And last time we spoke, we had the new products to announce, but we didn't announce it yet. And my conversation was challenging because I wanted to talk about all the cool things we have coming down the pipeline, but they had to keep it all top secret, as you know. But it's been a very successful, very productive year for us here at Asiga, and outside of the work life, home life is always great too.
Let's talk about the printer market for a sec, because I keep hearing some kind of mixed messages. Some people say it's been a super tough year. Some people say it's been very successful. What are you guys seeing on the ground? I know at the very least, clinically, in the trenches, it's definitely been a testing year. It's not quite as good as that gold rush after COVID.
Right.
What are you guys seeing? How's the year been in terms of 3D printing?
Yeah, from a product development standpoint, it's been a very productive year. I mean, we were able to announce 2 new machines, the Max 2 and the Ultra. And like those machines, we can't keep them in stock. They just they fly off the shelves. From an overall sales perspective, it's been probably one of our strongest years. And we're not seeing any sort of, I think there was a lot of concern about just the market in general. Look, there's a lot of players out there that are getting into the additive space and that are new to the additive space. But I think with our latest announcements, we're able to, try to stay on top, and it's been really successful with the new products launching. That's really helped. I think for any company, if they did not have any product announcements this last year, they very well could be a challenging year.
Yeah, for sure, man. And look, the updated Max, super cool. And the Ultra, which one is doing better right now for you guys? Which one's smashing it?
Yeah, they're both doing a really good job. The Ultra's got the extra bells and whistles. It's got the automatic hood opening system. It has the electromagnetic build platform holder. And so that has a lot of attraction just because of those sweet end user features. But the Max 2 is still, selling really good too. Usually you would see one product cannibalize the other, but it's almost like iron sharpens iron. And so we see end users and customers where they buy the Ultra for one application, and then they're like, I want to use something that's got a little bit smaller build platform size for my one-off or rush cases to not interrupt production. And then they tap on and tag on the Max 2 with their workflow. Do you have both machines now?
Yeah. I have both. I've been using the Ultra pretty much since it was released here in Australia, New Zealand. And yeah, we love it. I mean, I was just recording some content actually about the Ultra and 3D printing, and
sure,
our labs love it. And that kind of goes to the point where Asiga's an interesting printer to me, where it just dominates the lab side. Is that what you guys are seeing as well? You guys are number one printer, I think?
Yeah, so the first true market to harness 3D printing. So you have to remember, we've been around since 2011, and 3D printing in dentistry, it was first big in the laboratory space. And the issues in laboratory or dental lab 3D printing industry is that there weren't any reliable or accurate and durable 3D printers in the dental lab space. And when we entered the dental lab space, it was really a game changer for us, but also for dental labs, because they could rely on a product day in and day out. Like when we launched the Max UV, which is such a small, compact machine, but it's so durable, so long lasting. And then being able to move on to building a larger format printer, the Pro 4K. So dental lab space is definitely our first, that's our first market in the dental industry, but that's because that's what was needed in 3D printing when we first began. And now it's transitioning, there's a transition into the clinical space. And so our desire to build and design products so they're robust enough for the dental lab, but workflow and human-centric for the clinical space. That's our goal for everything that we produce.
Super cool, man. And so speaking of the dental clinic, I'm going to have a jab at you.
Okay.
When's the wash and cure coming?
So it's right around the corner. So the cure will be here. It should be here later this month or beginning of the year. And so the cure unit, we're extremely excited to have released. And then shortly after, it'll be the end of Q1, beginning of Q2, we'll have the wash. The curing unit is the most important aspect in the workflow after the 3D printer anyway. So that's what we put all of our focus in and getting released. And we're extremely excited for that.
What's I don't know if this is not a question for you, but maybe the engineers, but perhaps, why is it taking so long? I know Asiga is well aware of, it's all about workflow and validated workflows, and, a lab, they can get away with using the Tupperware, they know what they're doing, but dentists, they really want a complete solution.
Sure.
And I think that's been a dig for the Asiga printers for a while where, it obviously hasn't impacted sales too much, but it's like, oh, you can only buy the printer. Why has it taken so long? Are you guys reinventing the idea of a cure, or is it something new and special, or is it just this is what it takes to get regulatory approvals and everything?
I think there's a couple of folds in that to answer that question. The first area is that we were focusing as a 3D printer manufacturer to build the best 3D printer in the market, and there were already curing units out there and wash units out there available. So like when we look at like the leading curing unit, that's the NK Optics Auto Flash. I'm sure you probably have one. If you don't have one, your lab has one. And if that lab doesn't have one, their lab buddy has one, and they probably have a couple of them. So like the Auto Flash was already extremely popular, and there's already hundreds of materials that are validated in it, from non-biocompatible resins to biocompatible resins. And so it was kind of one of those things that was like, why go out and do that today when we can focus on building the best machine? And we already have a partnered solution that can do that, do the post-cure. But over time, as you know, end users, they want to have that simpler workflow, that streamlined workflow. And we've analyzed the, washing and the post-curing processes, and we feel the devices that we're in process of releasing will kind of tame down the wild, wild west of post-curing units. Like when you think of a post-curing in 3D printing, it's all based off of the material that you're using. And being that we're open on the material science side with over 700 materials to use, it's, that could be 15 different curing units for those 700 resins that a lab may need to have if you want to print all of those. And we needed to sit back and figure out what's the best way to develop a curing unit that can be as compatible with as many resins as possible. And we feel that we have the answer for that.
That's a big task, man. Validating over 700 resins for a cure unit, that's insane.
Yeah.
What about the wash side of things? Is that just going to be like some Tupperware containers, or are you guys going
to shake it up? Or not? I'm just kidding.
Is it going to be the automated route, or are you guys doing a spin on it like some other companies with a cutter or something? Or
so I can't share much on that yet.
Yes.
But the wash, it'll still be like an isopropanol wash based system that will be simpler to use and it's not as manual as sitting there shaking. It'll all be automated. Yeah.
So it's not like the centrifuge idea that was getting floated around and all of that. And there's a lot of ideas out there.
Yeah, like I looked at like, even if you're a large production lab and if you want to get into like, it really is like resin harvesting, right? That's what like large production centers, they want to try to reclaim as much of that resin to use it. You can get a salad spinner, like an industrial salad spinner. I'm not even joking, for like $50 online, and put your build platform in there and then just crank away. And if you're really that tight on resin, then you can collect it back in that way, and it works fairly well.
So there's some exciting things, more releases, man. A wash and a cure. I'll be super interested to see how they're looking. I know you guys teased it around Chicago midwinter. You said it had some brochures. So let's go back to the dental clinic side. Are you guys seeing big growth dental clinic side? Like, what's kind of the projections of dental printing and chairside? Do you think every clinic will have a printer in the future, or what's sort of the thinking there?
I think every capable clinic will have a 3D printer in the future. Like when we look at 3D printing in the clinical office, there's like killer apps for that. And I feel strongly that the killer applications for that will be, it's splints. Like you can pay for an Asiga Max for what, like less than 20 splints, and then how many splints do you do a year? I mean, it can be paid off in 2 months. And so, like those, like killer applications like that. But then chairside printing, like chairside permanent crowns and temporary crowns. There's so many new materials that are out and coming out in the future that it like chairside 3D printing, it just makes sense. And so honestly, the outlook for it is great. And there's really no negative for chairside or clinical 3D printing. The biggest thing is just you have to keep it as streamlined and as safe as possible on the clinical office.
For sure. And also, we've touched on this a couple of times, the CAD side. I mean, AI is bridging the gap, and like you say, apps that run it. The CAD side, because the majority of dentists, they don't know how to design anything. I think that may change with time. More and more people are interested in Exocad and everything, but it's such a small subset of dental clinics and dental practitioners out there. Anyway, it's funny you talk about the permanent crown thing. What are your thoughts? Have you changed your opinion on this? I know, close to 12 months ago when we spoke, it was kind of like, from what you've seen out there, what are your thoughts on the whole 3D printing crowns idea?
So until we see it in the market for a longer period of time, it's just like when zirconia was first released. Everybody kind of thought it was a smoke and mirrors material, and then it proved itself. I mean, that's a key winning material that almost every laboratory is utilizing in some sort of way. And the 3D printed crown materials, they're getting close to that point as well. I've fortunate being on this end of Asiga, I get to see, like the next generation materials before they get released. And there are some really interesting chemistries that are coming out that really tap into like true permanent crowns, not just temporary crowns with some filler in it, but true permanent crowns for 3D printing.
Anything you can share? I know I keep hassling you, but was it all secret under?
I wish, I've signed my life away on some of these documents, and so I can't share, else I'll have, the dental mafia here to take me out.
All right, well, there's something you can share. How about your opinion? Obviously, the Midas made a lot of noise this year, and pretty much everyone's talking about it. And I know Asiga dominates quite heavily the lab space. Chairside space, is that still the realm of SprintRay?
Like, is it still the realm of SprintRay?
Yeah, are they still the leading printer chairside, or who are the leaders in chairside printing now?
I never really like talking about competitors in any sort of like negative way. SprintRay, they have a great brand. They're building a good reputation. The Midas is definitely interesting for chairside. I mean, it's their CEREC mill. That's what they're targeting with that. And I think for chairside printing to truly be successful, you have to have a strong material, and you have to have a way to produce it fast, and of course open. And so I think that's where you're going to win from a clinical printing perspective. Look, I don't know your patients well at all, and as a printer manufacturer, I shouldn't dictate what materials you should use. And like for yourself, Dr. Ahmad, you know your patients better than anybody else. You know what materials they should be using. You know what potential characteristics they may have and what they may need. And you know what's best for your patient. And for you to have the ability to prescribe whatever material you want, that's the freedom you need. And Asiga gives that freedom from a clinical perspective and a laboratory perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that was a huge strength for Asiga since the start, the whole open. I mean, I don't think anyone has as many resins as you guys do. Is that correct? Does anyone even come close to the amount of resins you guys have validated?
No, not even close. Yeah.
I guess the question then becomes, and again, I know you don't want to ruffle any feathers because you work with a lot of these companies, but what would you say your top resins are for each indication? Just so we can learn from someone who's probably seen a lot of the resins, seen them in the field. Let's start nice and easy. Model resins. I think I like Asiga model resin. I think it's unbeatable. It's amazing resin. I love that model resin. Super crisp.
Yeah.
I think we talked about it last time. It looks like it's in HD mode somehow. But
yeah,
is that still like the best seller for your Asiga? That model resin?
Model resin, yeah. The Asiga Dental model is fantastic resin, and model resins, they're slowly, becoming a commodity, right? And because you need so much of it. But hands down, like from all the materials I get to play with, I am biased. The Asiga resins, anything that Asiga offers, I really like it. And I've been fortunate that I get to play with so many third-party resins, and a lot of them are great. And it's very few resins that just aren't that good. And it comes down to what your price expectation is for a product, and what your desired outcome is for in the lab or for the patient. Like there's excellent brands out there, like Keystone, Pacdent, Detax, Protheger, Dentona. Like the list goes on. Then there's so many different material manufacturers out there that are working on next generation resins, and it comes down for what your price point is for that application. It goes back to that old saying of you pay for what you get, right? And if you want a strong performing material for a permanent crown, or if you're looking for like the best denture resin out there, and usually you pay a little bit more for those premium products, but you're paying that for a reason, because the chemistry is better, and it's just a stronger, more durable material.
Well, what are your opinion on, out of all the resins, like if I was a customer and I go to Cory, I want to do printed crowns on my Asiga Max. And of course you would recommend Asiga resins, but let's say, where would you point someone? Which direction? Do you think the Rodin resins or the Bago Trinique, or do you have any kind of guidance in that sense? Just to love to pick your brain. I know I'm putting you on the spot.
No, I love being put on the spot. I'll tell you the answer that I tell everybody when I get asked this question. I think the best way to answer it is that I love all my resin partners, and they all produce their, like all the companies that produce a permanent crown material today, they all produce a great material, and they're all unique in their own way. And the best way to find out if it's a good material or not is just to simply buy it and try it, and read through I'm a huge numbers guy. And if you go through and look at the flexural strength and, the wear resistance, and go through and read those numbers, because there is science behind those numbers. But, try the material, make sure it meets, your shade requirements, make sure it's shade accurate. And once you try a couple of materials, you'll find a liking for what you truly like and what you don't like. And you may find some materials are harder to clean than others, and you'll find one that best fits your workflow and your comfort level, and then that's how you find a winning material.
Very diplomatic. Very diplomatic. Okay, I don't want to rustle any feathers. That's okay. What about this? Instead of asking you what's the best resin and all that, because I know you probably can't answer that, what do you see that's exciting on the horizon? Let's go that direction. Rather than talk about the old resins and tell you, what about this product? What about this product? What's some exciting things on the horizon, either for Asiga or in general in the market that you've seen in the past 12 months? Sure. Anything that you could share with us in terms of
absolutely
things to look out for? Because it's been a busy year, man. And it looks like next year is going to be even busier. I mean, every company seems to be ramping up for IDS. I keep mentioning IDS every podcast. Everyone should go there. Hopefully see some of you guys who are listening. But yeah, please go ahead. What have you seen or what's to come?
Yeah, definitely on the topic of IDS, if anybody's going to be at IDS, stop by the Asiga booth. It's a big year for us. What I see for like biggest advancements for 2025, it's going to be, how do we tap into next generation resins and seeing those like even stronger yet permanent crown materials, or seeing permanent crown materials that have better translucency and better strength. And I think we'll also see for 2025, I think we're going to see materials get better, but also prices come down, because just overall, like through competition, it's going to change the pricing structure. And with an open system printer like Asiga, you have the flexibility to, switch to materials that may be more competitive on pricing and find an application that really fits your build. And outside of the material game changing, because that's always going to be changing, I think it's just going to continue to get better. The software game is going to be really big as well, especially in additive, like finding ways to make your lives as a clinician or a lab tech even easier to use the product, find ways to maybe let you take your hands off of the machine, let the machine do all the work for you. those are going to be, high items for 2025. The additive world is just changing so quickly right now. It's pretty amazing to see. And like you said, at IDS, that's going to be a big year for a lot of companies, and there'll be quite a few exciting announcements around that time period.
Yeah, man, no doubt. And it's funny you touch on the software side, because you guys updated Composer. Is that something that you guys are looking to update further? Is that something that we can see get an update? Because I know you guys have already updated Composer. It was kind of more like a fresh lick of paint, really. It's got a more modern UI. Some of the buttons have been stripped. But compared to some competitors out there, the guys really pushing chairside dental printing. Printing software is almost totally changing now. It's not just the CAM. It's like you say, all these apps. Most printer companies are trying to design CAD features, all of that sort of stuff. Is that what Asiga is looking into as well? Or are you leaving the CAD to the CAD guys and just trying to make the workflow more streamlined? What's your thoughts about software and that interplay in terms of chairside?
Sure. So I think when we're looking at chairside, the software needs to be more intuitive in a way that it actually does majority of the work for the end user. And so think of the amount of time that you have when you're with a patient and the amount of time that you spend like orienting a part, nesting a part, adding supports to a part, checking a part to make sure it's going to work, and then sending it to the printer. Finding ways to eliminate those processes or reduce those processes is important for the clinical side. And CAD partners and CAD companies, they specialize in the design world. And we already have direct connections with the majority of them where you can utilize their software and one click of a button, everything gets uploaded to ours. I see 3D printer companies trying to get into their own like design fabrication software. And if you talk to them on the back end, it's being powered by your CAD partners. And so most of the CAD partners that are out there, they do like other companies that have a CAD solution in their printer package. It's actually being ran by that CAD partner. And so instead of, putting a, lipstick on something, we just allow end users to go straight to the source and try to make it as efficient and as easy as possible, as simple as one click of their data being transferred to our nesting software, and then the workflow begins.
Totally makes sense. I mean, and I guess that's the other thing for lab side, they all have CAD, they all know how to run the thing.
Yeah.
What about clinic side? Because only, 15-20% of clinics do in-house CAD.
Yeah.
So how does the other 80%, if they want to start printing, get into this? Is the solution simple? You just have to learn CAD, or what is the thought process there? How are you onboarding all these people that they don't know, they don't have ExaCAD, they don't want to learn ExaCAD?
Absolutely. There's a couple solutions. One is I know a guy that has a great ExaCAD education online database. Let me know. I'll give you his card. The selfless plug. I had to put that in there.
Exactly. Thank you. We actually do a great ExaCAD.
I know.
It's those who are listening, please go buy it. If you want to learn ExaCAD, I mean, it's basically the best online ExaCAD training.
There you
go. It wasn't done by me. It was done by my amazing technician, Marjorie. But anywho's, we digress.
And those that are watching, that was not a planned plug, by the way.
No, it wasn't.
It was a softball that got teed up to me. No, when you look at the digital workflow, it starts at the patient. You go to intraoral scanner, and almost all intraoral scanning software has some sort of design solution in it. 3Shape has their Produce, or Unite and Produce. Medit has their design packages, and you can do all the design inside of their robust software. And that's really easy to use, really intuitive. And then with one click of the button from their software, it's exported to ours. And so if you're a clinician wanting to get started, it's like you very well could have all the tools already in front of you. You just never knew about it. Like if you're going to go into your Medit Link software, if you're just using it for the intraoral scanner side, you may not have realized that they have a model creative software, and you can create your splints and temporaries and whatever it may be in that software. And same with 3Shape, for example, with the Trio software. And I'm sure others also have that built into it. And some of these services are free and it's already included, and you can go through that complete workflow, keep everything nice and neat inside of your scanning software, and then export direct to the printer.
The answer is simple. Anyone who's thinking, I want to do something in-house, I mean, this is the time, guys. You need to learn CAD-CAM.
Yeah.
It's something that a lot of the CEREC guys have been doing for 2 decades plus. I mean, that's just the only way, really. It's not going to get any more simpler than it is already, I think. I mean, with the AI tools now, and even Exocad just recently announced AI crowns. The answer is simple. You have to just spend the time, learn CAD, start basics, inlays, onlays, crowns, splints. Speaking of the clinic side and the lab side, actually, what do you see as the main thing people are printing? Is it number one indication is models for both clinic and lab?
Yeah, still a lot of models are being produced clinically, whether doing, a vacuum formed application or appliance on top of it. I think probably after models, it'd probably be splints, to be honest. Splints is that's low hanging fruit. If you're a clinician and you're not 3D printing splints, you're losing money right there. And if you're a laboratory not 3D printing splints, you're not offering a service that you absolutely should be. How long does it take to design a splint? 5 minutes right now with how easy the software is. Even some of the AI services or design services on there, I think you can get a splint in 10 minutes and it's $5. It's so inexpensive for that. And then fabricating a splint, you can print it and it only costs, a couple dollars of resin and a little bit of time. Throw in the UltraGLOSS tray and it's already polished, ready to go. And it's, that's about as easy as it gets for 3D printing in a clinical space or even a laboratory space. Beyond that, I think the next frontier outside of models and splints, it's going to be the removable market with dentures. Dentures is huge.
I hear that, actually. I hear that a lot. I was actually going to ask you about removables. I think it's a lot of people are talking about it's even exceeding fixed pros. The dentures is massive.
Yeah, dentures that's the next frontier for 3D printing in the clinical office. A large percentage of dental labs are already doing that, 3D printing their own dentures today. But for 3D printing a denture, the hard part is going to be really the design side. I've seen some AI design softwares that will be released in the future for denture design that takes away that hurdle. And fabricating a denture in-house through 3D printing is so easy to do. Yeah,
definitely. I personally, I've seen some AI do it. I think it's still quite difficult. It's like getting an AI to design an all-on-X prosthetic. There's just a lot more variables compared to a crown.
Yeah.
But no doubt it will get there. And I guess the other option is just third-party CAD designers. There's a ton of them. I get emails all the time, especially from China, of people that will design you a denture for a few bucks. It's crazy.
Yeah. There's so many different options that are out there, and the material game is getting better for dentures. You have premium materials, you have economy materials. You can print a denture for as low as, I think you can fabricate it for less than $5 for some of the economy resins out there, and then the premium resins, they're still at $25, and that's for a singular denture. $50 for upper and lower. That's really not bad, and I don't know how much they're going for down under, but in the States, I think a dentist is charging anywhere from, just for the prosthetic, anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 a denture. And so that's a huge market.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's I know a lot of what we call denturists or clinical dental technicians or prosthetists, they're called around the world. Basically, dental technicians that do more training to treat patients.
Yeah.
A lot of them that really get into this digital side and 3D printing dentures, they're creaming it.
Yeah, absolutely. The dentures market is it's a hidden gem. It really is. It really is, yeah.
So speaking of dentures, is Lucitone still the gold standard? Every time I talk to dentures with anyone who's printing, everyone talks about Lucitone digital print. That's the gold standard. Nothing beats it. I've tried a couple of denture resins. No offense, the Asiga ones are kind of a little bit ugly. Sorry, Cory, they're not the best. Especially the gum. It's good for a temp, but I think companies are really pushing these natural colors and natural teeth and everything. Is denture resin high on the list for Asiga that you guys are going to develop, or apart from Lucitone digital print, which I believe you can print on Asiga, right?
Absolutely. There's only 2 companies that can 3D print the Lucitone material, and we're one of them.
Bro, I don't know how you guys secured that, but Jesus, that is like a masterstroke.
You want to know why? How?
Well, how? Please.
No, I'm just kidding. We didn't pay any money. It came down to the accuracy. And so for Dentsupply's team, hats off to them and a round of applause to them. Their QC team and quality assurance team for getting a printer to pass their validation is strict. And the only way it can pass is if you meet their tight tolerances. And there's only 2 printers in the world that can do it. 2 printer manufacturers in the world that can do it, and we're one of them.
I think with their own printer, the Prime Print, there's 3. I think it's
3, yeah.
You, Prime Print, and Carbon, I believe. And Carbon is basically out of the question for most clinics and even lab.
Yeah.
And so just basically you or Prime Print. And I think having access to that resin, because everyone constantly talks about it being the gold standard for dentures, for printing dentures, it's a huge advantage for Asiga.
Yeah. It's a powerful material, and it helps having a great machine to be able to print it. And but that's not the only great material out there for dentures. I mean, you have the Pack Dent materials. They have the great denture resin. Denka, they're going through and they're going to have some new amazing resins out there. Colzer has an amazing denture resin. And so there's so many amazing resins out there. And then back to our denture resin. I
have to say sorry to Graham. He's probably the CEO of Asiga is going to listen to this and be like, why do we support this guy?
No, just I don't know when you've tried it or how long ago you've tried it, but I know like color stability and the shading is superior now than what it was.
I tried it early on. In my defense, it was very early on. And yes, the color stability was one of the issues that would change. But
yeah,
we're talking about Asiga Max, the original. I tried it. So this would have been 6 years ago, 6 years ago.
So you probably tried it when it was first released. You should try it again now. And the washing is key because it is a hybrid material. And so if you soak it in alcohol, then you get the white cloudiness.
I think that was the issue, man. And that's a funny thing. It's like I have a dig at the manufacturer like almost every dentist. It's not my problem, but that's the guy who made it's problem. But yeah, I mean, 5 years ago, we had no idea what the hell we're doing with printing. It's not like now where everyone's getting fancy with post-processing and you spray the crown resins and you spray the filled resins and we all appreciate what alcohol does and we're all taking it very seriously. 5 years ago, you used to dunk it for like 5 minutes and
you dunk it in the model alcohol that you just finished with the splints that you just finished with the cash. We're a lot safer now than what we were. It's pretty wild.
You spoke about UltraGLOSS. That was also released this year.
Yeah, that was released at IDS, the last IDS. So the UltraGLOSS tray. And so we were, excited to be one of the first companies to commercialize a polishing tray that does all the work for you during the printing process.
I think you were the first.
Yeah, pretty close to it. There are 2 companies that were right at announcing at almost the same time. We're one of them.
Interesting. And now it's like a market trend. You can see everyone in there and it's all different synonyms of gloss. I love that in the market. It's all different synonyms of tray and gloss. And now everyone's doing it. Do you think this is just going to be just what every printer manufacturer has to do for printing splints? Like you have to have this offering?
I mean, you don't have to have the offerings. You can print it with a normal tray. You just have to do more work for polishing. But if you want it to be as easy as possible, then you just throw in the UltraGLOSS tray. What we did release this year was the Lift UltraGLOSS tray. And so we have a new tray called Lift. It's only available on the Max. It stands for Liquid Interface Film Technology. The Lift tray is pretty wild. And so I've just finally had the opportunity to do some testing on a Lift tray today. Like I was printing full arch models on this tray in 16 minutes. And so that's the liquid interface film technology. It creates a dead zone at the imaging plane. And so the resin, when it polymerizes, it doesn't adhere to the film. And so that means we can get away with like really rapid separations in printing. My next trial will be on splints, and like just the surface quality and the overall print speed you can achieve is pretty amazing.
So right now, this new tray, are you guys using it for models or?
You can use it for models. You can use it for surgical guides. You can use it for splints. You can use it for permanent crown, temporary crown. You can use it for all of it.
It just makes things faster.
It's faster and it lasts longer. So the tray can actually last up to 20 liters of use before you see deformation.
That's crazy. Question. With UltraGLOSS, I can remember I spoke to Justin once. The guy's a super genius, CEO of Asiga. He explained UltraGLOSS to me. Do you know how it works? I mean, he explained it to me once and it was kind of just like, I want to know, like, how is a tray causing the surface to be highly polished? Or give the appearance of it being highly polished, sorry.
It's quite simple. If you're an Asiga user, buy the tray and just start printing some splints with it, and it'll make sense. But when you look at the tray, the membrane itself, it's not completely transparent. And so when light hits it, it diffuses the light. So it like scatters the pixel creation when it's curing, and it creates like almost completely polymerized external surface of resin. And so it's kind of like doing, like I'm sure you've heard of like the candy coating technique. It's like candy coating something, but during the printing process. That's
super cool. Speaking of candy coating, I'm going to put you on the spot again. What do you think of it? Is it a good idea, or we should be stopping it? Because pretty much every printer company I talk to says it's not a validated workflow. We don't know why you guys do this, but
look, there's materials out there that you should be using for this instead. And so like, I think Dravo was like one of the first companies that was called like a nano glaze or something like that. They were like one of the first like glazing, maybe not one of the first, but one of the more popular ones. It's just a light cure glaze. And that's what I would be using instead of just painting it with residual resin. You can do that. You can paint it with residual resin, but it may not have like the strength, like the similar like bonding characteristic of it. I've done a couple like trade show dentures, right, where I didn't have the glaze, and it's like, oh shoot, what do I do? And I strip and paint on some of the like denture-based resin, or I've done it with some surgical guides and some splints, but the best way to do it is to do like an official glaze. The official glazes are a lot thinner in viscosity. And so when you paint them on, they're barely even there from a thickness standpoint. And so you're not altering your design by adding those on. Usually the bond to the printed part is going to be much greater than like a candy coat. I don't have anything against candy coating. It's just that there's materials that are meant for this purpose, and it does the same thing, and it's probably a little bit more legit.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I guess that's the funny thing about 3D printing, especially chairside and all these prosthetics, is that the whole industry is kind of figuring it out as we go. Yeah. There's no real clear, definitive, this is how everyone should be doing it. It's just it's kind of like what you said. It's kind of like the Wild West at the moment. And I wonder how many years until we're going to actually get specific, this is how you do things, guys.
I think once it's an ISO regulated process, it will have to do it then. But yeah, I think that the biggest thing is that we try to produce as many educational documents as we can, and we work with different educators to be able to build the different programs, whether it's online or in person. And you'll always have somebody doing something different outside of the norm, and that's the beautiful thing about the dental industry, because it's like that for everything that we do.
Totally. It's changing so fast as well, which keeps it exciting.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back about the hardware while we wrap this episode up. Yep. So you guys released the Max 2 and the Ultra, and from what I understand, the original Maxes, they're getting phased out. Is that correct?
That is correct. So the original Max UV is replaced by the Max 2. And so the Max 2 is the replacement for it. The main aspects of the Max 2 is just a significantly easier to use Max. The touchscreen is updated. It has 3D renders for the different processes, like going through calibration and setup. It's just easier to use.
Modernized.
Yeah, it's modernized, and it's got a good sex appeal to it too. I mean, this looks great. And when we were looking at the Max and how we wanted to reinvent it, we wanted to make it as clinical friendly as possible. And so, like even from the design characteristics, if you were to look at it, it looks like a clinical 3D printer.
100%. Yeah, no, it looks really, I really like the design, man. Super modern. I'm glad you refreshed it, because it still holds its own, even though it's, I don't know, almost a decade or maybe more than a decade old. It's still a fantastic printer for the footprint. Yeah. So the core technology in the Max 2 is the same as the original Max.
It's similar, except it has transparent mode. And so the Max 2 and the Ultra both have a technology called transparent mode. And this is a mode that can be turned on or off. And this is a technology that I strongly feel that we're about 5 to 6 years ahead of all of our competitors on. This allows us to print clear materials or even pigmented materials with even higher precision yet.
Higher precision?
Higher precision yet. And so, like, think about, let's say if you're creating a surgical guide that has multiple anchoring points and multiple drilling axes. And if you're to 3D print that today with a photopolymer 3D printer, you want to try to orient it so that the drilling channels are as perpendicular to the build platform as possible to make it as accurate as possible, right? And so when you do that, that means you're going to compromise on maybe like the anchoring guides. And when you print with transparent mode on, and I can't tell you how this one works. This one I have to keep completely secret. But you're able to essentially orient a part in any orientation, and you're not sacrificing accuracy. That's the beautiful thing about transparent mode. And we see the biggest benefit to be on clear materials, just because those materials will have what is known in the 3D printing space as DP value, or depth of penetration. So like if you print with a pigmented material that has a high resin bleed aspect to it, then this will essentially improve accuracy dramatically.
So I have a question. Why don't you have it on for everything?
There's gives and takes, right? And so for us to be able to utilize this technology, it does slow down the printing process. It's weird because you have like two sides of the fence, right? You have some labs and clinicians that's like, I want the most accurate thing ever. Time does not matter to me. It could take a month. I want it to be extremely precise, the best thing I could ever put in my patient's mouth. And then you have the other half of the population that's like, you know what? If it's not as accurate, I'm okay with that. I want it in 30 seconds. And so, we build our machines so they can print as fast as they possibly can without sacrificing any accuracy. And that's proven. And I mean, you already know with the machines that you have and that you've played with, the Asiga is on the top for accuracy.
No doubt.
And for this transparent mode, if you want to take it to the next level, turn it on. You have it on your Max 2 and Ultra.
I have to check that. I mean, I don't know. I give it to my lab guys. We have 6 techs in the lab, so I assume they're going to be using it. I'm just scratching my head. I'm actually thinking while you're talking, I have to give them this episode. Guys, listen to it.
Yeah.
There's a transparent mode in there.
Yeah.
And I think it's hidden behind menus. Could you guys not do it a bit simpler and just have it right in the front?
Actually, there's 2 ways you can find it. On the printer hardware, if you go to, I believe it's under, so if you go to the hamburger menu on the touchscreen and then go to settings hardware projector, it's right there. You can toggle it on and off. And so it's not hidden. And then in the composer software, when you're sending the job, under the advanced parameters, you can simply enable it or disable it there.
Oh, cool. So you can do a software side as well. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm definitely telling my techs that.
Yeah.
So back to the Max 2 transparent mode, fresh lick of paint, looks a lot more modern, new touch screen. Anything else about it?
No, that's it. I mean, it's just a modern, it's a well-deserved upgrade to the Max. Yeah.
And then you obviously have the Ultra. The Ultra's everything we like about the Max, bigger, new heaters.
Yeah.
What else? The touchless entry, etc.
Yeah. So when we were developing the Ultra, like the number one question we got is, when are you going to build a desktop machine that's bigger than the Max? And that's what the Ultra was designed around, is building an accurate 3D printer that's bigger than the Max, but still a desktop machine. And then we went back to the drawing board. It's like, how can we make it easier for our end users and safer for our end users? And one of the biggest issues with 3D printing is that it's messy, it's toxic, right? I mean, you have to wear gloves when you're handling the material. If you get in contact with it, you could have an allergic reaction that would be less than desirable. And so with the Ultra, we're like, how can we utilize the machine without having to actually touch it? And like, what touch points can we reduce? And so the first thing is having that automatic hood opening system. You simply just wave your hand in front of a little proximity sensor and the hood opens up. The next thing is like, how can we reduce human error when operating the machine? And I've started a print job before without having a build platform in, and I've started a print job before without tightening the knob up top. I know that sounds so simple and so like elementary, but we took those fail points away. And so it's an electromagnetic locking build platform that can hold up to 80 kilograms of force. And there's a little camera inside that scans the build platform to make sure you actually have it in. The resin trays now have a sensor, like a locking sensor. And so it knows that the tray is locked before you start to print. I've been guilty of that, where I've went to my Pro 4K and I'm watching it print, and the build platform and the tray are moving in unison up and down. And I'm like, oh, this is bad news bears. And so we've eliminated those potential human errors. And so it's developing the Ultra was a lot of fun because it allowed us to find the gaps that are in the clinical market and laboratory market and fix it.
And do you think the Ultra is kind of a replacement of the Pro 4K? So do you think going forwards, the two devices that will be sold is, at least for clinic side and dentistry, because I know you guys have your other industries that you work in. For dentistry, is it going to be Max 2 and Ultra? Is that the two main products now?
No, all three still. And so we still are you would think that when you when you introduce something that's in the middle of the road, usually you have to compromise somewhere. You're going to cannibalize some sort of product. And that didn't happen. And so we're still selling a large number of Pro 4Ks in the dental laboratory space. And the Pro 4K is predominantly a dental laboratory 3D printer. But you'd be surprised the number of clinicians that have a Pro 4K.
How does that all work together? Because I know the Ultra, I assume the Pro 4K, the main thing about it was the big build platform. But now the Ultra has a big build platform. So what's the kind of buying decision there? Why would you get a Pro 4K, not an Ultra?
So if you're a production center, I think it's like a 15%, it's either 15 or 20% larger build platform.
Right. So it is bigger than the Ultra.
Yeah, it's bigger than the Ultra. And so if you're looking for, if you're a production laboratory or needing larger production, larger volume, the Pro 4K is the way to go. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool that you guys now have the small, the medium, and the large sort of thing.
Yeah.
You guys haven't played around too much with the whole offering different build platforms and different size trays for the same printer. Like Accurata, Sprint Rate seems to be a big trend. Even Shining 3D do it. Is it something you guys are looking into, or?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting concept. The main reason why most of the other companies did that initially was to try to speed up their printer. Because we have our smart positioning system technology, our SPS technology, we didn't need any a smaller tray or a smaller build platform. Because really what they're doing with that is you're battling against the approach forces when 3D printing. And our printers, they're intelligent, they're dynamic, and they will automatically recognize any approach forces and will adjust that. But I think it's the biggest win for the crown kit or arch kits are being able to print with low volume resin, right? That's the biggest huge win that we would see from that. And you never know, maybe we'll have it, maybe we won't.
Keep your eyes peeled. And so right now, in terms of the hardware, it sounds like next year is a big year, but is it fair to say the hardware side, those three printers are going to be holding the fort for a good long while, and maybe the developments in next year that we can see is going to be mainly software, AI, resin? Is that a fair call?
You never know what we have up our sleeves.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to take blood from a rock here, but that's okay.
Yeah, I know. I've sworn to secrecy with Justin and Graham. So
no worries. I respect Justin very much, so I will keep you at that secrecy. We'll just have to come check it out. Guys, that wraps up this episode. Any last words, Cory, for the audience?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just, keep driving digital. It may be intimidating at first if you're not digital in any way, shape, or form, but start small. And look, there's so many resources out there. You're talking to one of the best resources in the industry, and just, do your homework on it and, buy smart. And that's unfortunately, it's one of these things that, or fortunately, digital dentistry is not going away. It's something you have to do. It's something you have to be part of in some sort of way. Dip your toe in, get the intraoral scanner, get the right one, and you'll love it.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. I totally agree with you. It's like you say, I couldn't have said it better myself. It's not going away. And I totally believe that in the future, every single clinic and every single lab will have a 3D printer.
Yeah.
There is no doubt in my mind, even for the most basic thing, which is we scan people and we're digitizing all this information. And sometimes you just need models. That's the most basic thing. You just need models for whatever it is. And without a printer, it's not easy to do that. So like Cory says, guys, it's important to digitize. And we're seeing the percentages go up every year. I think we're close to 50% in terms of intraoral scanner adoption in places like the States. Still not super mass market all around the world, but it will get there. And Cory, no doubt, will talk every year and see if we can draw some more stuff out of here.
Yeah, we'll try. Well, I look forward to next year.
Yeah, man. Look, anyone who's coming to IDS, please go check out the Asiga booth. Last year, they had an amazing booth, 2 years ago. And next year, it sounds like it's going to be a huge year.
Yeah.
That wraps up this episode. I thank you, Cory, for your time, man. I know you're a busy guy. I appreciate you jumping on the podcast and sharing your insights. That is everything for the Digital Dentistry Decoded podcast, guys. Like, review, comment, share it with your colleagues and your friends. It supports us and helps us keep going with this to give you all the best digital dentistry information. See you in the next episode.